Is it okay to use samples? What's up, geniuses? My name is Adriel Vera, and welcome back to the channel where you learn to show your genius. The world of sampling can be pretty obscure to new producers, especially when you're trying to sample yourself. Are you allowed to use samples? How do you know if a sample is copyrighted? Is it okay to use samples in your song? So we're going to be answering all of these questions today. However, the first thing you're probably wondering is, Adriel, do you use samples? And yes, I do. Actually, I always do. And you probably do too. So if you're somebody that's downloaded these drum packs before, you might have all these drum samples that you use for your drums. These drum samples are samples. And every time you make a song using drum samples or any sort of sound that you didn't make yourself, you are sampling. I just realized my shirt's dirty. Sorry about that. However, when most people think of sampling though, they probably don't think of using drum samples and things like that. They think about sampling other songs and using other melodies. Do I use samples like that in my music? Yes, I've used those too. Let me show you how I actually incorporated these samples into my music. And sorry if you hear a lot of noise in the background. My grandma is visiting and she's chopping up a squash, and my little brother is yelling as usual. So this is the project file for my latest song, What Can You Say About Me? And one of the samples that I used was this sample. What I ended up doing was pitch shifting that, adjusted the timing, and added some effects to get a sound like this. However, these weren't the only samples that I used in this song. I also found this really cool drum loop and chopped it up a little bit to make it sound how I like it to sound. However, when it comes to sampling, you don't have to just take the samples and leave it as is. To spice up my song, I decided to add more to these samples because these samples basically provided a foundation for me to build a new song around. If it weren't for these samples, this song wouldn't be here. But also, if it wasn't for me, I wouldn't have interpreted these samples the way that I did to make this song. So think of it as a collaboration between you and the sample. So for the drums, I decided to add an extra snare to give it a little more oomph. And underneath the vocals, I put in these chords to add on top of it. I also added the little cutoff filter in the vocals during some parts of the song. And layering that over with these chords makes it sound really, really interesting. I added in a couple other elements like an ambience. Plus, I added in my vocals to really make this song mine.
You've been talking bad about me ever since we got to started. You're just mad to see us happy, jealous cause you know we got it. You are never near our rhythm, cannot comprehend our system. Funny that you're so caught up in my life. It's crazy cause I ain't even ever known you.
As you can see, there's many ways to incorporate samples into your song and make them unique. So it's not like you just use these samples and that was it. However, how do I know it's okay for me to use these samples in my music? And also, where did I even find these samples? So first thing we got to talk about is copyright. What is copyright in the first place? By American laws, I'm not sure in other countries, but I know for a fact in the United States of America, all original works that you make, no matter what, are automatically copyrighted to you. If you're not going to be going to court or anything like that, government documentation is not necessary to know that you have a copyright on your original work. So basically, no one else has the right to use your music or sample your music without your permission first. So when it comes to sampling, whoever you are sampling owns the right to that sample. If you want to use a sample, you have to make sure that you have permission to use it first. If they catch you using their sample without having cleared permission first, they have the right to take legal action against you, which could be really, really bad in some situations. Let's say you sample a song, it blows up, gets you millions and millions of streams, you make millions and millions of dollars off of it. If that song used a sample that you did not clear, the person that you sampled has the right to take legal action against you, and if they win, they can take a lot of that money. So you want to make sure that you're careful with what you're sampling. So, is it okay to use samples? Yes, it's absolutely okay as long as you clear the sample first, which clearing means getting permission to use that sample. So if you sample a song that's owned by a big record label, your odds of getting that sample cleared are pretty minuscule. Unless you yourself are a huge artist and have connections with your record label that's connected to that record label, or maybe you're even under the record label that owns that sample, it's going to be a lot easier. However, for us independent artists, if we want to sample a huge song, one that's owned by big labels, it's probably not going to happen. However, if a song is owned by an independent artist, it's probably going to be a lot easier to clear that sample because independent artists are generally more easier to reach. Now, do I have permission to use these samples that I used in my song? Yes. How do I know that? Well, it's because of where I got it from. So what I used was Splice. This video is not sponsored by Splice. I have no affiliation with them whatsoever, but I do use it sometimes, so I'm gonna break down a little bit of what Splice is. Splice essentially is a huge library of samples that you are able to use for your music. You can use these samples however you want, put them in your songs, and you could distribute your songs to huge stores. So all the revenue that you make from your music goes directly to you because Splice is giving you the right to use these samples. They provide these samples to you, and you can be as creative as you want with them. Now, Splice isn't free. It's $8 a month, and when you sign up with them, you get 100 credits every month, and each credit is worth one sample. So every month you can get 100 new samples. These credits do roll over, so if you don't use your 100 credits one month, they'll roll over to the next month. So let's say you use 20 credits one month and you have 80 left over. Next month you'll have 180. Splice is really great for not only samples, but you can also find cool drum kits there. And almost any sort of genre of samples that you can think of are probably going to be on Splice. So I'd recommend you try out Splice if you want to get samples that you can use for your music and not have to worry about any of that copyright legal stuff. If you want to use Splice, I have an affiliate link down below. Like I said, this video isn't sponsored by Splice, but if you sign up with that affiliate link, it helps me out with no extra cost to you, so feel free to check it out. But for a quick recap, you are allowed to use samples as long as you clear the sample first, and you don't need any sort of legal documentation to prove that you are the copyright owner of your own samples or music. However, if you need to go to court or take legal action, I recommend you file your music with the United States government if you're in the United States using copyright.org. I'm not exactly sure what the fees are. I think it's about $80 per song, but for most of us independent artists, we don't really need to worry about that, at least not right now. If you want to listen to the full song that I used in this video called What Can You Say About Me, feel free to click the eye icon up here. It'll take you to that song. I really appreciate the support. Also, if you want to talk to me and the rest of the community on Discord, feel free to join my Discord down below. Links are always in the description, and if Splice sounds like something for you, feel free to check it out in the description as well. YouTube doesn't provide the most sustainable income, so if you want to support me and the channel, feel free to check out my Patreon down below. If you become a patron, you get some exclusive bonuses that nobody else gets, so feel free to check it out. I really appreciate you guys watching. It means a lot to me. Stay safe out there, make some really dope music, but most importantly, don't be afraid to show your genius.
You've been talking bad about me ever since we got this started. You're just mad to see us happy, jealous cause you know we got it. You are never near our rhythm, cannot comprehend our system. Funny that you're so caught up in my life, it's crazy.